28 years later was a thrilling, visceral ride I did not knowingly buckle in for. I think it took me about 20 to 30 minutes to really understand, to try and work out what was going on. I definitely went into this movie expecting a totally different film, something more of a sequel to 28 Weeks Later to some degree, or Days Later, in terms of being that kind of style film. Obviously, being aware that it is 28 years later. Yeah, doing a zombie film in 2025, you'd be expected to bring something new to the table, and here I think Danny Boyle brought an entirely new table in itself. So it did take me the first quarter of the film to really try and navigate my emotions, because I was watching it and I was visually impressed with the imagery, the camera work. The camera work, especially in the first act, I would say, is unique, really pulls you in as you think. I was a bit conflicted internally. I was thinking, I like what I'm seeing. It's visually beautiful. I love the setting, the atmosphere, the world building. But something wasn't really clicking. And I only realized after watching the entire thing, it's because I was expecting a different film. And the film that we get, despite how amazing it is, it still is very much different than what and I imagine many people expected. Simply acknowledging that took a little bit of time, which is why I believe that on rewatch, I enjoy this film even more now that I know what I would be walking into and expecting, accepting that this film is completely different than what you would think, which is a good thing. Uh, I would have loved to gotten the film I really wanted, but then again, thinking about where we are with the times and the fact that it is so many years later and the fact that you can do so much more, overall, I do think that as experimental as this film was, it did work. I am eagerly looking forward to the next two films in this trilogy. Looking forward to it now that I've seen this film. Without giving any spoilers for now, I definitely need to talk about so many spoilers, which I will do at this time mark. I must applaud the camera work, especially in the first act, as I said. It is so beautiful. I imagine many of you have seen that viral picture of the 20 or so iPhones in a rig. I'll show it on the screen here. And seeing it in action is totally mind blowing. The score, the sound, the rumble, the grittiness, really, really compelling. The red filtered shots, you see creatures getting hit with arrows, you just see it from multiple different angles at the same time. It's as compelling as the camera work was. I do think, with it being so all over the place, it can be a bit hard for you to really get reeled into the story and the characters as much as just seeing it from a stylistic point of view. So I did appreciate that the second half of the film, though obviously still having great camera work, it was less stylistic, allowing me to really get immersed in this world a bit more. So it's quite an interesting dynamic to think about. They can have really cool and unique camera work and different shots and angles and jagged angles, but for me personally, I felt myself more drawn into the world when things were a little bit more cohesive, I guess. So you can appreciate the stylisticness of the camera work in the first half to the bit more mellow. And it may not even be mellow, it may just me amalgamated to it and it not sticking out as much. But that's just my perspective. I remember being about 12 or 13 when I first watched a 28 Days and Weeks Later back to back, and it quickly became my favorite zombie films. I remember Weeks, I did have a soft spot for Weeks, and upon rewatching them both in cinemas in the past few weeks, which is insane to see in cinemas, though the first one is obviously really unique, a lot more scarier, the grittiness, the grain. I remember walking out the screening and hearing people say, a couple talk about how the film was fantastic, but they thought the camera work was really bad. And I understand it's a stylistic choice, but it boggled my mind that there was even some people who questioned or who didn't realize that it was intentional, this grainy, almost home footage style aesthetic of the first film, and maybe even the second to some degree. Yeah, I would say so. At least stylistic and artistic choice, and I think it allowed me, and I'm sure many others, to really get immersed in this world in a different way and see it in a different way than it just being a generic zombie film. And it's not for everyone, and I think that's perfectly fine. It's not going to be for everyone, but I did really appreciate that grittiness, that groundedness, the shaky cam, the grainy filter, as people think it is. Just that digital film look, I really did appreciate. And I do think that they replicated that style while still keeping things really modern in 28 years later. Stylistically, you can definitely tell it's more in line with the first film. However, I do have a sweet spot for Weeks Later, and upon rewatching it, I still have to stand by it. Personally, I think I just fell in love with the characters and the stories. That openings obviously it was iconic and insane. But I did enjoy the rest of the film. I did connect with the characters and the world. Listing all the films together now, I would probably still put Weeks at number one, which I know would be really controversial. It's probably not the lowest in people's ranking, but it may just be me reminiscing of a movie I was really fond of in my childhood. But I do think I connected with that film a lot more. Rewatched it so many times, and I just think it's the most enjoyable one. That's just my opinion. But obviously, in terms of quality, in terms of expectation, this is by far the superior one. But if I had to rank them, I would probably say Weeks Later is my number one, Years Later is number two, and then Days Later is number three. But they're all really close together. It's not really much of a far distance list, so I should say. I guess before I move on to spoilers, I should talk about the characters. Did connect with them. I did enjoy it. The tone was very, very interesting. Comedic tones that was introduced here and there I did think worked for the most part, but I will say there was a few scenes where it sort of took me a little bit out of it. The opening, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I enjoyed the opening. I didn't think that would even be the opening, but obviously that's from the trailers, the Teletubbies. I'm gonna have to rewatch that opening again to start. I don't think that was as impactful as the first two, and the music choice and the tone, I didn't really connect with it. I don't think they were trying to replicate Weeks Later's opening, since obviously that did have dialogue. You did get to know the characters a little bit before destruction ensued, and it didn't really sit right with me. Finished the ending scene, it did sort of connect with the opening in a way, and it did make me think, okay, I get it now. But so yeah, overall, it was a great film. You've got some great gore, great camera work, great acting, an epic story to a certain degree, amazing visuals, amazing visuals. There's two very different scenes that just go almost magical in Journey. Changes what genre we're watching. I was just blown away by it. It became this epic dream, this fantasy. And in a lot of ways, this film explores many different things thematically. It can be really chaotic, but I do think it works. Uh, I read someone saying that sort of were a little bit put off by it, and then halfway through the film, you sort of appreciate it a lot more and you sort of get it, something very experimental. And I do think there's a bit of a learning curve until you can fully appreciate it, but that is not a bad thing. I think more films should do that. Fantastic film. I do think it actually does live up to the hype, largely due to the fact that it completely skews way out of any sort of expectation you would have. It's a completely different film than even the trailers make out to be. If I have to talk flaws, I mean, I'm gonna have to. I'm really gonna have to rewatch it again. With the tone changing quite a bit, and with so many different things going on, I do think it gets a little bit convoluted in very small and particular points. But I wouldn't really say it's a flaw. I think that's just a natural occurring when a film is going to completely subvert expectations, and not for the sake of feel the genuine uh love and care and art that was put into this. I don't think this was just done for shock value. Naturally experimentative, and I do think it works, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so let's get into spoilers. So Aaron Taylor Johnson, love him. I have been just by chance watching so many of the films he's been in, from Godzilla 2014 to Bullet Train and one or two more I can't remember just right now. I think it was Bullet Train that really put me onto him. I really enjoy the Godzilla 2014 film, and hence I think I kind of cast that dark cloud over him. But I remember watching Bullet Train and really clicking on to him and thinking, okay, he's actually really good. I actually want to see him in more roles. He works, and I think he does the opening act brilliantly. I think he does bring a lot of nuance to it and grit. In the grace area sort of character, and I think he will definitely play a very important part in the films to come potentially. However, I will say that I am glad that the film did shift away from him in the second and third act. Funny enough, that's also when I noticed the camera work being less jittery. Not in a bad way again, just I felt more immersed in the second and third act and almost a bit more calm. And I do wonder, well, I'm pretty sure that was intentional, with the first act being very intense, a lot of jagged angles, a lot of different imagery popped up. It obviously does continue, but I feel like it's a bit more calmer. It's a bit more calming. I do wonder if that's because because the younger boy, I don't know his name, is more at ease with being with his mom than being with his dad, who was portraying this completely different version of him to the crowd. It's funny that that whole dynamic did remind me quite a lot of my relationship with my dad in a very small aspect. So that was definitely relatable and understandable. It's sort of portraying your kid as this trophy child, this trophy kid, without actually really connecting with him. Disparity between how you treat him and how you portray him to be to other people can sort of make the child feel that he's not living up to your expectations, and that your dad has, and that, you know, his father had to make up all these stories to make him look good, but in reality is fueling his own ego because it's his son, his product. A very interesting and complex dynamic to work with, and ultimately it drove the younger lad away, it drove him away, and that is obviously how the film ends, with him going on his own way. I'm so looking forward to the next film. I'll say the third act was a little bit confusing for me. So because this film has so many different things going on, I was wondering, okay, what is the end goal? What is the purpose? What is the core story of this? Uh, and then I could kind of tell that, okay, we're clearly now building onto another film. I was wondering if we would get like a final third act crazy sequence, but clearly was just leading up to the next two films that are coming, which is fine. I do think that's fine. I think this is easily a world and universe that can be expanded into, especially since we're still focused on the continent, not even the continent. We're just focused on mainland Britain, UK, and obviously that can expand to many different areas and open up many avenues of storytelling. So I do think that it is valid that this film can push along a new trilogy. It was gritty, dark. I absolutely loved the red filter. It really caught my eye. Dark, gritty camera work to footage from World War II or one, and that iconic sound and poem that we heard in the trailer. Um, this movie really is a journey, and it's a very brutal and sad journey. I think it would be pretty much a journey of a son and mother trying to get her better. And the mother, Jodie Comer, if I'm saying that right, I think that's her name, played the role brilliant. It was interesting to see the dynamic of her being confused, frail, but then being completely aggressive and almost psychotic in other scenes and flash. Her killing, showing that she was once very capable and now is slowly succumbing away to her fate. My battery just died, so I'm just gonna try and regurgitate that end bit. You see, there was two segments that really caught my eye and carried weight in this film for me, especially the scene where we see the first Alpha running down that bridge to the island, which was a very cool concept. Uh, Now that's a proper sanctuary where the only way in and out is a long and narrow bridge of sorts that gets covered by the tide as it goes in and out. I wonder how that'll be used in the films to come. So yeah, where we see the first Alpha running down that bridge, where the sky is turned into this galaxy and colors and sparks, it becomes very magical, extremely magical. And at first, I was so caught off by it. I was just like, "What am I watching?" Then I was thinking, "This is really beautiful," and then you just sort of accept it, and you're just okay. This is an insane, rage-filled, dreamlike sequence that we're witnessing, and that happens again in around the Bone Temple when the young lad is putting his mom's skull on the pile of bones. That whole Bone Temple thing was really cool as well. Wonder how that'll play into the next film, since that's the name of the next film, right? And that doctor character that we see there was interesting to say the least. Introduced a lot of new ideas with the ionized thing, that substance on his body, keeping the infection, not infection, but keeping the creatures away, the zombies, the rageful people away. And it was very telling, with him keeping the alpha alive and just sedating him temporarily. I surely thought at the second time, finish the job, since that alpha is clearly hell bent and determined on finding the baby. I'm fairly certain we'll be seeing him again coming after that baby. It would be interesting if the young lad giving the baby to that community and leaving the alpha alive, if that's going to impact something and cause mass destruction on this sanctuary island. Although I wonder if that would sort of break the logic of the elf. Is it able to smell the scent of the baby? But you never know how it could have evolved to, and it's its own kin, so maybe it can navigate and find it. And yeah, it's a brilliant film. It's clearly made me think a lot. And then we had the end bit with the Jimmy character. So yeah, that was again a complete tonal shift. Characters, and I guess they're like a ragtag group that the younger lad will be joining in the next movie. Yeah, I was a bit confused with the third act. I think I was expecting some sort of third act set piece or some sort of mission or something. Just it had like no bone or skeleton of film I was expecting. So I really was wondering how this would end. Didn't have a solid ending, but it does leave you wanting more, and I want more, and we'll see where it goes. I hope that the tone of the next film won't be completely comedic. I hope it'll be similar to this, where it sort of balances out or tries to. So just have to see where it goes, and I think it comes out next year, right? Let me know what you think down below. I see it's been getting good reviews from critics. I imagine we'll get some mixed reviews from hardcore fans, again expecting a film different than what we got. So I'm curious to see what actually other people online have to say about it. That's actually what I'm going to do next. I'm going to get some food and watch some other people reviewing this and talking about it. So yeah, see you later, and I hope to hear what you think about it down below.